If you have ever jumped into Project P.I.T.T and felt like your production was moving at the speed of a lazy slug, this is the tip that will turn your game upside down. I spent a good amount of time testing production lines, optimizing space, and adjusting priorities, and I have gathered the 10 tips that actually make a difference when it comes to multiplying your production without turning it into a mess. Stick with me until the end because there are tips here that can really help you out. I'm Mary, and let's get into it. When I want to keep production running without having to push duck by duck, fans are one of the first tools that go into my build. They seem simple, but they totally shift the pace of automation by keeping objects in motion the moment they leave the spawners. Instead of manually tracking each item, I let the flow run on its own while I focus on upgrades, expansion, or base organization. The secret lies in placement. I position the fans right after the item spawners at a point where the airflow can catch the ducks before they scatter across the floor. If the fan is placed too far away, objects can stall halfway through or drift off to the sides. The earlier you control their direction, the fewer losses and mess you will see on the line. It is also not enough to just place the fan flat and expect miracles. I tilt the fans along the route, testing the angle until items are steadily pushed toward the pit. A slight tilt can be the difference between a duck reaching the maw and another getting wedged in a corner. When airflow works in tandem with panels and guiding tunnels, transport becomes far more reliable. This is one of the best ways to start generating passive income in Project P.I.T.T. While the fans push production into the maw, I can reinvest earnings, build new areas, and set up more advanced systems without cutting off profit. Automation does not need to start with a massive machine. Sometimes a few well-angled fans are enough to make your factory do the work for you. One thing I noticed quickly is that the free physics of the ducks and objects is both the charm and the nightmare of the game. They roll, bounce, and scatter everywhere, and if you don't build a clear path for them, your production turns into a chaotic mess across the pit floor. That was when I started using guiding tunnels, and this change alone completely transformed the efficiency of my line. I build these tunnels using structural panels attached to the walls or the floor, creating corridors that force items along a specific path. Instead of letting ducks escape to the sides or get lost in random corners, I channel everything straight to the center of the pit. It is simple to set up, but the impact on production organization is huge. The combination I use the most is structural panels paired with sticky tools, as it gives me total freedom to create funnels, chutes, and custom lanes. I adjust the angle and slope depending on what I am transporting, ensuring nothing slips out of the main flow. This pair has practically become my default setup whenever I'm expanding a new production area. Ultimately, these tunnels eliminate item leakage, which is one of the biggest efficiency drains in the game. When everything flows directly into the maw without losses along the way, your production speeds up noticeably, and you stop wasting time hunting down stray ducks across the map. This is one of the most important automation techniques I use, and I recommend you start applying it right from your first few hours of gameplay. I do not obsess over increasing the value of a single duck before delivering it. What actually makes income skyrocket is keeping the maw supplied in a rapid sequence. A high-value item helps, of course, but when delivered alone, the payout remains limited. On the other hand, an avalanche of ducks arriving without interruption triggers multipliers that completely change the pace of progression. I structure my line to stockpile items and release everything at once, or at least at a tempo fast enough that the combo never has time to drop. This can be done with a temporary barrier holding ducks back, a launcher firing multiple products along the same route, or fans pushing an entire batch through the tunnel. The key is making sure each delivery feeds the next one immediately, keeping the counter climbing. When you reach X10 combos or even X200 combos, the difference in profit becomes very obvious. Instead of collecting small payouts repeatedly, you turn standard output into a sequence with massive multipliers. That is why I prefer improving flow, cutting down distances, and removing bottlenecks before spending everything trying to raise individual item values alone. In practice, I treat the factory as a rhythm machine, not just a production unit. If the line delivers ducks in a steady, concentrated stream, the maw keeps rewarding each new item with a higher multiplier. Produce in volume, hold when necessary, and drop in bursts. That is the most efficient route to scaling profit without relying solely on increasingly expensive items. Early on, it is very easy to spend your first profits on any upgrade that looks interesting, but I prioritize two stats above almost everything else: craft speed and craft value. These are the upgrades that genuinely scale your production, as one increases the frequency at which items spawn, and the other boosts the value of each item produced. When the two work together, even a basic line starts yielding significantly more. I start with craft speed because speed is the fuel for all automation. The faster spawners create ducks, the sooner tunnels, fans, and launchers stay supplied. This also prevents empty gaps that break production rhythm and cause you to lose combos. A line that consistently delivers items is always worth more than a machine that outputs a lot but takes forever to release each duck. Afterward, I invest into craft value to ensure that extra volume actually translates into cash. Producing dozens of items quickly is great, but each duck needs to carry enough value for combo multipliers to matter. This upgrade raises your base payout, meaning every streak entering the maw pays out better without requiring complex build overhauls. This combo remains strong throughout the early and mid-game. I look at craft speed as the upgrade that keeps the machine fed, while craft value ensures every delivery carries weight in your profit. Before spending resources on situational upgrades, I always strengthen these two options, as they speed up your progression and make any physical layout much more efficient. The faster the factory runs, the more volatile the physics become. When too many ducks hit the same spot at the same time, they start colliding, pigging up too much speed, and flying off in completely unpredictable directions. At first, it might look funny, but it stops being amusing when those items vanish or get stuck out of reach, taking a chunk of your output with them. I pay close attention, particularly to areas right after launchers, fans, and steep drops. These are the spots where objects tend to build momentum and cause violent collisions. If there is an opening on the sides or too much clearance above the line, a single escaping duck causes a quiet loss that repeats over hours of production. The solution I use is enclosing the most aggressive zones with structural panels on the sides and the ceiling. Instead of just laying down a track on the floor, I turn high-speed sections into protected corridors. That way, when items collide, bounce, or catch a hard gust from the fans, they stay contained within the system and ultimately return to the route leading to the maw. This precaution becomes even more critical when you upgrade craft speed and start producing larger batches to trigger combos. There is no point in speeding up the whole factory if a portion of your ducks gets launched off the map or locked in mid-air. I prefer spending a few extra panels to guarantee an enclosed flow, because every contained item is money reaching the maw, not a resource lost to chaotic physics. When I want to step away from the main production line and explore, the first thing I do is look for corporate surveillance cameras. They are not just there for decoration. While the surveillance system is active, trying to climb structures, pillars, and upper walkways can trigger the "I see you" alert and cut your exploration short. That is why, before hunting down map secrets, I make sure those cameras can no longer watch me. The most practical way to deal with them is using the ducks themselves as projectiles. I set up a launcher or tap into an existing production flow to hurl products at the cameras until they break. In some areas, it is also worth checking the lights mounted on pillars, as turning off or breaking these nodes can disable the surveillance system without requiring you to reach every single camera directly. Once surveillance is down, the map opens up for exploration. I can head up walkways, reach high structures, and hunt for hidden crates without getting penalized or reset along the way. These less obvious corners are where loot boxes and gambling crates tend to appear, which help accelerate progression with resources and rewards that do not come purely from standard production. This tip does not directly speed up your factory, but it can significantly improve your overall progress. While production keeps running, exploring hidden areas can yield materials, cash, or perks that bolster your automation later on. Whenever you see a camera blocking your path, remember, a well-aimed duck can open up a lot more than just a route. As soon as panels enter the picture, I do not wait long to pick up sticky tools. This upgrade feels minor at first, but it changes the way you construct any production line. Without it, panels and tools can slide, tip over, or get knocked out of place after a few collisions, causing a setup that looked fine to tear itself apart. I see sticky tools as the foundation of reliable automation. They are what allow you to anchor panels to walls, floors, and structures, creating tunnels, ramps, funnels, and barriers that actually stay where you put them. This gives you the freedom to build steeper, more aggressive routes without constantly having to walk back and fix a piece that was pushed aside by a pack of ducks. That stability makes a huge difference, especially once production starts ramping up. As craft speed increases and more items circulate simultaneously, any loosely placed panel becomes a point of failure. A tiny shift can open a gap, let ducks escape, or even redirect the entire line away from the maw. With sticky tools, the structure handles the constant physical impact much better. For that reason, I prioritize this purchase as soon as panels become available. Before trying to build a massive factory, I make sure I have the means to keep every part of it firmly in place. Sticky tools do not put money directly into your pocket, but they prevent losses, cut down maintenance, and turn makeshift builds into automated systems that run smoothly while you manage the rest of the map. I do not obsess over increasing the value of a single duck before delivering it. What actually makes income skyrocket is keeping the moss supplied in a rapid sequence. A high-value item helps, of course, but when delivered alone, the payout remains limited. On the other hand, an avalanche of ducks arriving without interruption triggers multipliers that completely change the pace of progression. I structure my line to stockpile items and release everything at once, or at least at a tempo fast enough that the combo never has time to drop. This can be done with a temporary barrier holding ducks back, a launcher firing multiple products along the same route, or fans pushing an entire batch through the tunnel. The key is making sure each delivery feeds the next one immediately, keeping the counter climbing. When you reach X10 combos or even X200 combos, the difference in profit becomes very obvious. Instead of collecting small payouts repeatedly, you turn standard output into a sequence with massive multipliers. That is why I prefer improving flow, cutting down distances, and removing bottlenecks before spending everything trying to raise individual item values alone. In practice, I treat the factory as a rhythm machine, not just a production unit. If the line delivers ducks in a steady, concentrated stream, the maw keeps rewarding each new item with a higher multiplier. Produce in volume, hold when necessary, and drop in bursts. That is the most efficient route to scaling profit without relying solely on increasingly expensive items. When I want to trigger massive combos, one of the techniques I use most is the magnet dump. Instead of letting ducks trickle down into the maw, I let a mountain of items pile up in a strategic area and use stacked magnets to hold everything in place. The goal is not just gathering items, it is creating a stockpile that can be released at all once. The most critical part is magnet placement. I stack 2 or more magnets at points where ducks pass frequently, creating a containment zone strong enough to hold the flow. As production continues running, items collect there, forming a pile that looks like it's about to collapse. The larger that reserve, the more explosive the delivery becomes once you decide to drop it. When it's time to trigger the combo, I quickly turn off or remove the magnets so the entire mountain drops into the maw at once. When dozens of ducks enter almost simultaneously, the multiplier climbs aggressively. That's how I hit x200, x200, and even x300, x300 more easily, stockpiling heavily and dumping everything in a single burst. This technique works particularly well when you already have a fast, stable production line. Instead of letting the factory run aimlessly, I use the magnet dump to turn that constant volume into windows of extreme profit. The key is having the patience to build stock, positioning the magnets well, and releasing everything at the right moment, because a single well-timed dump can yield far more than multiple small deliveries. When it comes to steady production, the first thing I build is a clean, short lane. Having fast machines is useless if ducks have to travel a long path filled with turns and obstacles. The more direct the route between the spawner and the maw, the more items can arrive per minute, which is what sustains high combos without stalling. The starting point is the automator, or whichever advanced machines you have unlocked. I position these spawners with the downstream flow already in mind, rather than trying to fit the rest of the line around them. That way, the item output is aligned with the panel funnel right from the start, preventing ducks from scattering the moment they spawn. Right after the spawner, I place a funnel or chute made of panels secured with sticky tools. This section serves to funnel items into a narrow strip before they enter the fan area. Next, I line up a series of fans pointing in the same direction, pushing ducks in a straight line toward the maw. The trick is keeping everything along the same axis without unnecessary diversions. The result is a route so short and clean that throughput scales far higher than in complex layouts. My target is to reach close to 400 products per minute on a single lane, and that only happens when the path is direct, free of bottlenecks, and clear of spots where items could get stuck. For steady production, this is the baseline I always establish before layering on more elaborate automation.